This conference will now be recorded.
Am I audible? Good morning, everybody. Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Shall we start the class? There are 75 members. Still another 75 members are supposed to come. Anyhow, it's a long topic. We will start the topic. This is the last topic in your chapter lids. Today we will be discussing about eyelid tumors. Basically, what you have to know is what are the different types of eyelid tumors, what are their origins, which is benign, which is malignant, and how do you treat it, or what is the surgery you do to treat these eyelid tumors. The main thing is about diagnosis. How do you diagnose it? What are the clinical features? Today we will be discussing mainly about eyelid tumors. As far as your exam point of view is concerned, very rarely questions do come in this topic, but for completion we will complete this topic also on eyelid tumors. I hope all of you have received the PowerPoint on eyelid tumors which I have passed to your class representative yesterday. So we will start off with this topic, eyelid tumors. So mostly eyelid tumors are benign. They constitute about 80% of the eyelid tumors. Rest, remaining 20% are malignant, and in that basal cell carcinoma is the most common or most frequent tumor, malignant tumor of the lid. BCC is nothing but basal cell carcinoma of the lid. You must have come across this basal cell carcinoma in your surgery also, but in the lid specifically we will discuss a little bit more detail about basal cell carcinoma. So tumors can arise from various components of the eyelids like skin, glands, vessels, nerves, and soft tissues. So we know the anatomy of the eyelid. Eyelid is having mainly 5 structures: skins, subcutaneous fat, tarsal plate, then posteriorly and the muscles, and then the skin, subcutaneous fat, muscles, tarsal plate, and the conjunctiva. These are the 5 layers of the eyelid, and we also have vessels, and we also have nerves. We also have glands in the skin or in the eyelid of the in the eyelid anatomy. So tumor can arise from any of these structures. So broadly they can be classified into epithelial, melanocytic, glandular, vascular, and neurogenic. It's again based on the origin. Vascular is from the vessels, nerves is neurogenic. So glands, from the glands we have glandular tumors, from the cells, epithelial cells, we have the epithelial tumors, and from the melanocytic cells we have, or the melanin containing cells, we have the melanocytic tumors. So you have to just remember, whenever we are discussing about the tumor or whenever we are learning about the tumor, we have to first understand what are the basic structures, what is the normal anatomy, what is the normal histology, normal physiology of that particular structure. Then only you will be able to understand the deranged form of it or the pathology of it. So lids tumors basically can be classified into epithelial, melanocytic, glandular, vascular, and neurogenic. So coming to epithelial tumors, first we'll discuss about epithelial tumors. There are so many epithelial tumors in the lids, so we will classify them further into benign tumors, precancerous, and malignant. We saw that benign tumors constitute about 80% of lid tumors. So benign tumors, we have squamous cell papilloma. It is just from to remember, it is very difficult to remember all these names. I agree to remember all these names, but the only way we can remember is if you know the normal anatomy and normal histology, then you can remember the various tumors arising from each structure. So hyperplasia is one other thing, and keratocanthoma, seborrheic keratosis, inverted follicular keratosis. We will discuss about each of this in detail. I'll throw light on all these things. Then precancerous tumors are actinic keratosis, Bowen's disease, and radiation dermatosis, xeroderma pigmentosa or pigmentosum. Malignant tumors are BCC and squamous cell carcinoma. So remember the malignant tumors, that is BCC and squamous cell carcinoma, and benign tumors we have squamous cell carcinoma, squamous cell papilloma, keratocanthoma, and seborrheic keratosis. So precancerous are the middle ones. This actinic keratosis, Bowen's disease, radiation dermatosis, and xeroderma pigmentosum. So now coming to the first one, that is squamous cell papilloma. It is the most common tumor. It is papilloma. So it is, you can see that this is the lid margin, and around the lid margin you can see a small outpouching like thing. It is usually called papilloma. It is either sessile or pedunculated. Pedunculated means it has a small root there. Sessile means it is just like a dough which is stuck onto the lid. So sessile is spread in a wider range, and pedunculated has a small stem. So the color is usually same as surrounding. It can be multiple and usually involves the lid margin. So this is the lid margin, and usually involves the anterior lid margin, and it has histopathology, has finger-like projections of vascular connective tissue covered by hypoplastic epithelium. And usually treatment, what we do is we excise that. You excise that tumor, or you give a carbon dioxide laser ablation. You just ablate that that aspect of the tumor. So this is an example of a pedunculated tumor, and this is an example of a sessile tumor. It is usually seen in the edge of the lid margin, and it is mainly two forms, sessile and pedunculated. Now the next one is keratocanthoma. Keratocanthoma, as you can see here, this is an example of keratocanthoma. It is a flesh-colored papules, usually in the lower lid. It's commonly seen in the lower lid, and it is seen in areas where chronic sun exposure is present or in immunosuppressed patients. And it is similar to a low-grade squamous cell carcinoma with dome-shaped hyperplastic hyperkeratotic lesions growing rapidly and regressing within 1 year once keratin-filled crater develops. So it usually regresses on its own in a period of 1 year. Once that central crater, you can see here, the central crater is developing, or central deepening is developing, then it slowly starts to regress because all the tissue which is there inside it starts to come out. So this is an example of keratocanthoma. Then comes into seborrheic keratosis. It is usually involves face and eyelids. You can see here, this is the picture. Just these are all spotters. You have to see the tumor, and you should be able to identify what is the tumor. So seborrheic keratosis is an example. It is commonly seen in middle-aged and elderly people. It is tan to brown in color, and it is well demarcated. It is well demarcated on the lid margin, and it is lobulated, and usually it has keratin-filled cystic inclusions or horn cysts, which is also called. This is an example of seborrheic keratosis. Coming to inverted follicular keratosis, it's a nodular or wart-like keratotic mass which is usually seen at lid margins and presents as a cutaneous horn. It is just gives an appearance of a horn, like a horn of a buffalo or something like that. It just gives an appearance like a horn. Whenever you see such a picture, you have to suspect inverted follicular keratosis. All these tumors which are arising from the skin are usually named keratosis. Some names are given as keratocanthoma, some names are given keratosis. So actinic keratosis, all are arising from the skin of the lids. They are given the name keratosis. So at the lid margins, it is usually present, and it is appearance is like a horn, and it is usually a recurrent and there is a male predominance for this type of tumor. Now this is nothing but trichoepithelioma. You can see there are a lot of small bubble-like structures or vesicle-like structures around the lid and along the nasal margin. So it is a rare neoplasm where there is a hyperplasia of the epithelial cells of hair follicles, and solitary. It is usually solitary in adults, means it is usually single in adults or multiple in adolescents. Most common over face and nasolabial folds. It is usually along the lid margins and along the nasolabial folds, and it's a well-defined tiny yellow papule or warts or lobulated. It's a small lobulated tumors which are present along the nasolabial folds and along the lid margins. This is an example of trichoepithelioma, and it is the main cause is this is hyperplasia of the epithelial cells of the hair follicle. Now, till now we have discussed all the benign lesions, and I'll just revise the benign lesions. Squamous cell papilloma, or you can see it along the lid margin, keratocanthoma, and seborrheic keratosis, and inverted follicular keratosis, and trichoepithelioma. These are all benign lesions. Now, coming to precancerous lesions. Precancerous lesions, first most common is actinic keratosis. You can see here this is an example of precancerous lesion. It's a most common precancerous lesion. It's usually seen in sun exposed areas, and it more common in fair skinned middle-aged people, and there is a scaly keratotic single or multiple flat topped lesions. Usually if you see such a lesion along the lid margin, you have to suspect actinic keratosis. Patients may have other pre-malignant or malignant lesions elsewhere. So this is an example of actinic keratosis. All these are precancerous lesions. They are not cancerous, but they are precancerous lesions. Intraepithelial epithelioma. Here you can see there is a red swelling with small induration and scarring over the skin. So you can see that erythematous pigmented crusty scaly fissure keratotic plaques. These are all which are seen along the lid margin and more common in sun sensitive people, and strong association is seen with arsenic poisoning. So this is an example of intraepithelial epithelioma. You can see this swelling like this, which is crusty and scaly and pigmented. So along the lid margin, you have to suspect intraepithelial epithelioma. The previous one was actinic keratosis, and this is the intraepithelial epithelioma. Radiation dermatosis. Now, if some people have undergone radiation therapy for some precancerous or cancerous lesion on the face or on the neck, then these people develop this type of dermatosis along the lid margin. They are called as radiation dermatosis. Depends on total dosage which is applied, and usually seen around 20 years after exposure, and 2/3 of them could develop basal cell carcinoma. This is the type of lesion which is seen in people who are exposed to radiation or radiotherapy treatment of the skin or on the face. Next is an example of xeroderma pigmentosa. It is common autosomal recessive condition, and it is associated with growth retardation or delayed sexual development, and scaling with erythema and numerous freckles which are seen on. This is a problem in the genes which is seen as this particular condition. These are also highly precancerous lesions. Xeroderma pigmentosa, commonly seen in early childhood. Now coming to malignant lesions. Malignant lesions are, as we discussed, basal cell carcinoma and squamous cell carcinoma. First, we will discuss about basal cell carcinoma. In basal cell carcinoma, we have, it is a malignant tumor which is commonly seen. It's also called as rodent ulcer. And the most common region is lower lid, then the inner canthus, and the upper lid, and then the outer canthus. So this is the area how which usually the most common sites which is which it is seen. So basal cell carcinoma, Mostly it is 85 to 95% of all malignant tumors of the eyelid tumors. In the malignant tumors, which we said are 20%, the major carcinoma of the lid is basal cell carcinoma. Most common location is the lower lid, and the next most common location is the inner canthus. So there are basically four types: nodulo-ulcerative, pigmented, morphea or sclerosing variety, and then the superficial variety. The nodulo-ulcerative means it starts to ulcerate. It is the most common variety. Initially, it is seen as a firm nodule, and then which has vessels surrounding it. Later, it develops, it ulcerates, and these ulcers have rolled out borders. This must be discussed in your surgery also, in your second posting of surgery. Second posting of surgery, and it is usually pigmented. The second one is the pigmented type, and the third one is morphea or sclerosing variety. Fourth one is the superficial erythematous lesion. So these are the basically four types of scaly lesions, and these are the examples of that: the nodular variety and plaque. This is an example of sclerosing variety of basal cell carcinoma. You can see here, this is an example of sclerosing variety, and these are all examples of location. You can see this is the lower in the along the lower lid, and this here you can see it is ulcerating. So this is also example of basal cell carcinoma. It is usually locally malignant, and the progression is gradual, but the relentless spread into surrounding areas. It starts to spreading into the surrounding areas. It starts occupying the conjunctiva, starts eating up the conjunctiva. Slowly, if you leave it alone, it starts eating up the sclera also. So it starts progressing in the localized area. Systemic invasion is usually less, and it involves orbit in circular fashion, and once orbit gets involved, pain, diplopia and movement limitation is usually seen. There are, on histopathological examination, you see cords of cells with scanty basophilic cytoplasm and palisading nuclei. This is a HP description of basal cell carcinoma, and there is no cornification or no erosion in these cells. Treatment is radiation is the first preferred treatment. The next preferred treatment is the surgical excision and lid reconstruction, and usually excision should be 1 to millimeter away, wider away from the site of the lesion. Suppose this is the lesion, you do the excision, you should go beyond 1 to 2 millimeters away, and you have to excise this much part of the lid. If you just excise this much area, the peripheral cells or the cancerous cells, they still continue to spread. So this is an surgical treatment. If the involvement is very severe, then it is accentration of the orbit which needs to be done. And cryotherapy is another modality of treatment, and cytotoxic agents also can be thought of. Now, coming to squamous cell carcinoma, it is commonly seen in fair skinned people, and incidence is 1 in 40. It is lower lid is most commonly affected. Upper lid and outer canthus more commonly involved than in BCC here. Most commonly here also it is the lower lid which is commonly involved, and it is a slow growing hard indurated nodule plaque which ulcerates with the regular borders after months. So sclera resists invasion first, and spread is by perivascular or perineural lymphatic spread only, and the regional lymph nodes are usually involved. Usually death is seen 2 years after lymph node involvement. Though it is a localized tumor, it usually causes death after involvement of the lymph nodes. So you see what is the histopathological appearance. The classic appearance is epithelial pearls or the keratin pearls, which are commonly seen in squamous cell carcinoma, and usually prognosis is poor. 62% survival, 62% 5-year survival is commonly seen. So this is an example of squamous cell carcinoma which you see, and this is an ulcerative variety of squamous cell carcinoma which is seen. This is the first picture, is the nodular variety of the squamous cell carcinoma. Coming to pigmented tumors, we have discussed all the pre-epithelial tumors, epithelial, benign, precancerous, and cancerous. Three varieties we have discussed. Now the next variety is the pigmented tumors. As per our initial classification, in the pigmented tumors, you can see this is an example of a pigmented tumor. There are melanocytic lesions which are frequently seen along the lid margins, and usually there are three types: junctional, compound, intradermal, or kissing nevoids. Based on the location, you classify them whether it is junctional, compound, intradermal, or kissing nevus. Kissing nevus means the melanoma will be there in the upper lid and also lower lid also. So it usually arises from deep-seated melanocytes. There are different types in that called as blue neve or nevus aforta. The next one is epidermal melanocytic tumors. They are small freckles which are macular type of lesion, and there are different types in epidermal melanocytic tumors. This is an example of a melanocytic tumor. So if it is benign, it is called as nevus. If it is malignant, it is called as melanoma. So in that there are various types like freckle or lentigo simplex or lentigo senilis. So it is based on the type and how they are spread. These names are given. You don't have to go into so much details in undergraduate level, but if you just remember, pigmented tumors are of two types. One is nevus and second one is melanoma. Nevus is a benign form and melanoma is a malignant form. So what a brief discussion about malignant melanoma. Malignant melanoma is a very highly malignant tumor of the lid. It 1% of all malignant tumor. Its morbidity is very severe. Usually there are four types in that: lentigo maligna and superficial spreading melanoma, nodular melanoma, or acral lentigo melanoma. You don't have to go into all these things or all these details, but just remember that malignant variety of pigmented tumor in the lid is melanoma. So usually these benign nevus, they transform into melanoma. So what are the signs? What are the chances of a benign nevus transforming into a malignant melanoma? So when there is a change in size or surface or shape of the benign nevus, when whether there are symptoms like pain, itching, or tenderness, then also, and there is a change in the surrounding skin like redness or swelling, that indicates that the nevus is progressing into malignancy or into a melanoma. The next, glandular tumors. We have finished pigmented tumors and epithelial tumors. Now we will come to glandular tumors. In glandular tumors, we have benign tumors. They are known as adenomas, and they are small nodular or umbilicated lesions. This is an example of a glandular tumor. So if it is benign, you call it as benign tumor or adenoma. Now, when do these sebaceous tumors or sebaceous gland tumors become malignant? Now, it gives an appearance similar to chalazion. In a young adult, if you see a chalazion-like picture, then it is usually because of the inflammation, non-suppurative inflammation of the meibomian glands. But in an older age, a person who is beyond 50, you see a chalazion-like picture, you have to rule out sebaceous gland carcinoma. So, or meibomian cell carcinoma is the other name for it. It is commonly seen in elderly ladies and with the history of radiation, and it is more common in the upper lid. And usually it is a small, firm to hard, painless nodule which is with the skin over the swelling slightly free. So they enlarge and break open on the conjunctival side with fluctuating, with fungating appearance. So it gives a similar appearance like a chalazion, but it is usually seen in older age group. So older age group, a picture mimicking chalazion, you have to rule out meibomian gland carcinoma or sebaceous gland carcinoma. Both mean the same. Both are the same. Meibomian gland carcinoma or sebaceous gland carcinoma are the same. So usually the prognosis is very poor in these particular cases, and treatment is wide surgical excision, radiotherapy, or palliative treatment. Now, other sweat gland tumors which we come across is, one is hydroadenoma and second one is syringioma. this hydroadenoma arises from sweat glands, and they are usually translucent swellings, translucent cystic swellings, and syringioma is nothing but a tumor from the eccrine glands of the lid skin. So till now we have discussed epithelial tumors, pigment tumors, and glandular tumors. In glandular tumors, the most important malignant tumor is meibomian gland carcinoma, which mimics like a chalazion in an older age group person. And there are other benign tumors like this hydroadenoma, syringioma, adenoma, hydroadenoma, and such benign tumors are there of the sweat glands. So all these are arising from the glands around the hair follicle or in the skin or in the structure of the skin. So now coming to vascular tumors. Vascular tumors is mainly from the vessels. If it is arising from capillaries, it is called capillary hemangioma. If it is arising from the veins, it is called as venous hemangioma. So now, if it is capillary hemangioma, it is usually gives an appearance of reddish purple, soft, elevated lesions with small invagination. It's also known as strawberry nevus, and it is usually congenital, and usually they regress with age. 30% regress by 3 years and 70% regress by 7 years. So now this is an example of capillary hemangioma. You can see here this small swelling is there on the lid and the eyelids are closed. If it is not treated early, usually they go into amblyopia, but usually they regress by age of 3 years. So early intervention is better, even though there is regression by age of 3 years. So what is the early intervention you will do? So early treatment with cryotherapy, sclerosing agents, irradiation, systemic steroids can be tried, or intralesional injection of steroid like triamcinolone, or betamethasone is these also give very good results. Now the next one is nevus flammeus. Nevus flammeus is nothing but it gives an appearance like a port wine stain, and it does not blanch on pressure, and there is a flat lesions which deep purple hue of variable extent and associated with Stooge-Weber syndrome. Now, this is an example of nevus. You can see this is how it gives an appearance. This is slightly more. It is not a capillary lesion. It's something similar to a venous lesion or venous veins which are involved, and usually they are present like that in the early childhood. So it is also called as strawberry. It's also called as port wine stain. You can see here it gives rise to just cosmetic deformity. With age, usually they come down, it decreases, and some people it remains. And venous tumors mainly are called as cavernous hemangiomas. They are usually commonly seen in second to fourth decade, usually progressive, and there is no spontaneous regression in cavernous hemangioma or venous tumors. They are encapsulated masses of endothelium lined blood-filled spaces which are stagnant, and usually secondary changes like calcification or fibrosis is seen in cavernous hemangioma. And this is an example of cavernous hemangioma. Treatment is usually local excision of the vein or the hemangioma, cavernous hemangioma, and it is usually associated with some syndromes like Guerin-Bach-Merit syndrome, and it is associated with the purpura, thrombocytopenic purpura. There is thrombocytopenia in these particular children. Then there are other vascular tumors like lymphangioma, glomus tumors, and angiosarcoma. Just remember the names, that is sufficient. These are hamartomas lesions, or glomus tumor is a small reddish tender nodule. Angiosarcoma is small blood pictures which may ulcerate. So these are various examples of vascular tumors: capillary hemangioma, cavernous hemangioma, port wine stain, or nevus flammeus. These are the common tumors which we come across in vascular tumors. And in HIV patients, we come across a special type of vascular tumor that is called as Kaposi's sarcoma, or it is usually a multiple well-defined purplish nodule which may persist, unchanged, or disappear, or ulcerate. It appears like a hemangioma of a cavernous hemangioma or a capillary hemangioma, but it is commonly seen in immunocompromised or HIV patients. Now coming to nervous tumors or the nervous tissue tumors. Commonly we come across is neurofibromatosis. This is one commonest tumor which we come across in the lids. Usually there is associated systemic involvement. It is autosomal dominant involvement, and it is mainly problem with the neuroectodermal tissues where all the peripheral nerves are affected. And you see small the tumors on the lid. When you palpate that, it gives an appearance of a bag of worms. Like if you palpate a bag of worms, the appearance is similar to, the feel is similar to when you have the feeling of bag of worms. It is called as neurofibromatosis. In this, there are type 1, type 2, different varieties are there, and there is usually associated involvement of the uveal tissue, retina, orbit, conjunctiva, iris. Other associated features also are usually seen. It is not an isolated lesion of the lid, which is commonly seen in neurofibromatosis. So this is an example. It is you can see an S-shaped curve, and when you palpate this lid here, it gives an appearance, or it gives a feel of a bag of worms. So usually upper lid is involved, and skin over the lesion is movable. So these are the diagnostic aspects of eyelid tumors. When a eyelid tumor come, how do you go about examining a case of eyelid tumor, and how do you come to a diagnosis? First is examination, and you have to ask the symptoms, how long the symptoms have been and how high it has progressed. Is there any immunosuppression, or is there any history of radiotherapy? Then you have to do the local examination. Is it ulcerated? Is the surface smooth or crusted? Bleeding is there or not? How are the margins? Local examination needs to be done. Then you have to assess the regional lymph nodes, and cranial nerves examination needs to be done. Ultimately, the diagnosis is by histopathological examination. Clinically, you can just suspect this is the lesion. So classical signs of malignancy: when do you suspect malignancy? And when do you suspect whether it is a benign tumor? When there is loss of eyelashes, when there is telangiectasia, when there is ulceration, when it is hard and the margins are irregular, then you have to suspect malignancy. Now coming to surgical management of lid tumor, the simple principle is, in one line, surgical management of lid tumor is you have to excise the tumor in toto, and you have to reconstruct the lid. So reconstruction depends on either opposing the after excision, opposing the margins after excision, or you have to reconstruct with the surrounding skin or the tissue which is available, or you have to take a graft from somewhere else and from the body. So this is the common principle. So adequate excision is always favored in malignant neoplasm of eyelids, in contrast to irradiation. So excision is the main, excision followed by lid reconstruction. So there are many types of lid reconstruction based on the amount of excision. If the excision is small, then direct closure is sufficient. If the excision is moderate, then reconstruction needs to be done. There are different types of reconstruction or lid reconstruction, which we will not go into details. You have to reconstruct the anterior lid margin and the posterior lid margin. There are different types of surgeries for that, and if the defect is large, there are different types of surgeries like cheek rotation or nasolabial flap or forehead flap. You have to take a flap from surrounding tissue and then reconstruct the lid. I will show you a few pictures of that. Now this is an example of reconstruction. You can see the upper lid margin, upper lid tumor has been excised, and the skin from the lower lid is cut in toto. Full incision is given, and the skin is pulled. The tarsal plate and the conjunctiva is pulled and attached layer by layer to the upper lid. After some time, this upper lid heals. When the upper lid heals after 1 to 2 months, then you just excise that, and the remaining tissue you just suture it off and then you get this final outcome, like you're borrowing the tissue from the lower lid and filling the defect in the upper lid. This is an example of lid reconstruction procedure, because the excision is quite wide here, and you cannot just oppose the margins and suture it, because that is why you have to take from the lower lid, you take the support and then you refill the gap there. So this is an example of lid reconstruction procedure, like Cutler-Beard procedure. This procedure is called Cutler-Beard procedure, and this is an example of Mustard procedure. You can see here, this is the ear, this is the eye, and this much tumor has been excised. So you have to raise a flap in front of the tragus. From here you have to raise a flap, separate the skin, get it over the defect, and then suture it. So you raise a flap from the skin and then you suture. This is an example of reconstruction of lid for large defects. So basically, eyelid tumors, as we have discussed today, can be classified into 5 types: epithelial, melanocytic, glandular, vascular, and neurogenic. Each one has its benign and malignant form. Malignant forms, most commonly asked questions, are on meibomian gland carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and basal cell carcinoma. And lid reconstruction procedure is based mainly on type of defect, whether it is small, medium, or large. The type of surgery is planned, and then how do you differentiate between a benign and malignant tumor is what you are supposed to know. So please go through the PowerPoint and go through the textbook regarding the details. And with this, I end my class. Thank you.